Okay, and
at a
equally
minimum,
on
violent
the
rhetoric.
right as well, though, Scott. Equally on the right as well. Can we at least
Listen,
be fair about this?
I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I have no time and no quarter for any criticisms of Republicans or conservatives or Donald Trump or Charlie Kirk or any other both sidesing this.
Joe Biden is a bumbling, dementia-filled Alzheimer's, corrupt tyrant who should honestly be put in prison and or given the death penalty for his crimes against America.
Scott Jennings is one of the most disingenuous MAGA talking heads operating right now, and he went on Times Radio in the UK to talk about Charlie Kirk and the rhetoric surrounding that. In the US, certainly, there has been this enormous effort to lionize Charlie Kirk. Trump recently called Charlie Kirk a martyr. Right? So Scott Jennings here contributing to that. Let's check it out. I'm going to have my opinions, and then I want to know what you think in the comments.
For the years and watching him do these debates and engage in this rhetoric and draw these crowds, it was just nothing short of a miracle what he was doing.
Yeah, look, we spoke to Bob McEwen last night, who's on the board at Turning Point USA and a close friend of Charlie's, as you may know. And he said, you know, no one else engaged the upturn in 18 to 25, 1835 support, conservative support for Donald Trump. He engaged a whole generation, a generation that may well stay for years and years to come. And that's why he was so important.
Yeah, I spoke to the White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, just a few minutes ago, and we talked about that, about what Charlie's impact on the campaign was in helping turn out young conservatives for Donald Trump and bring people into politics. You know, that's what to me was so amazing about his operation. There was the external piece of it, which everybody sees, the debates and the crowds. There's also the internal piece of it, the organization. They had quite a robust data operation. And so both as an external facing matter and as an internal technical matter, Charlie had this operation at Turning Point that was quite good at motivating people to engage in politics and then to vote. And you know, there's no question that it helped President Trump regain the White House. And so his impact on our politics it's hard to describe because it was enormous. And of course, even after President Trump won, he continued to be quite close to the president. He's very close to so many members of the administration. They take his counsel. They listen to him. They know that Charlie had his hand on the pulse of not just the MAGA base, but that young group. You know, what are they thinking? How are they processing issues? Charlie was where everybody turned to sort of feel, get the feeling for what was going on among the people.
Yeah. Look, you said you'd just spoken to Susie Wiles, the White House Chief of Staff. I wonder what she, or how she reasoned with the language of Donald Trump on this and how you feel about it as well. He talks about the radical left, blaming the radical left for comparing wonderful Americans like Charlie Kirk to Nazis. This kind of rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today, said Donald Trump, and that has upset a lot of people. Is that useful, Scott, to hear that from the President of the United States?
Well, is it useful to hear the truth? I mean, that to me, and I'm going to give you what the average conservative is thinking today.
Sure.
Whenever something bad happens in this country, whenever there's some kind of terrible incident, people come along to lecture conservatives about toning down the rhetoric and this and that, whether it happens on the left or whether it happens on the right, and no matter who the victims are, somehow we're always told that it's conservatives who are the problem and that they need to tone down the rhetoric. Meanwhile, you have people like Senator Chris Murphy from Connecticut, who the day before Charlie was shot, in an interview said that we're at war and you have to be able to do whatever you need to do to win the war. You had Tim Walz the other day telling a crowd that he was hoping to wake up one day to news that Donald Trump had died. You had Seth Moulton, a congressman from Massachusetts, on TV this morning lecturing conservatives that they're the real problem. Now, it's our friend that's dead. And you cannot deny that there has been a number of people on the left engaging in violent rhetoric, calling for violence, whether it's been because of something that they didn't like that Charlie said, that the president said, whether they're mad at Israel, you name it. There's a lot of causes on the left right now that are causing people to engage.
Okay, and equally
at a minimum,
on the
rhetoric.
Right as well, though, Scott, equally on the right as well. Can we at least be fair about this?
I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I have no time and no quarter for any criticisms of Republicans or conservatives or Donald Trump or Charlie Kirk or any other both sidesing this. It's our friend who's dead, shot in the throat while doing what we're supposed to do as Americans, which is engage in civil.
Okay, Scott Jennings is the king of Bullshit Mountain. He goes on, I don't want to hear about any of this, both sides, and, it's the left. It's the left that is spewing this violent rhetoric, and all of us on the right are just homespun folks with love in our hearts. It's 95% of us in the country, and we all agree, and we're all just saying what's true and right. And these radical lefties is spewing their violence, right? It's the upside down. It's bizarro world. It's Bullshit Mountain. And, as he continues, my friend, Charlie Kirk, and he was our savior. Let's take a look at a clip of the angelic Charlie Kirk just doing what any 90% of the American population would do as he's talking about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
I am a product of teachers and an educational system that believed in providing the children with the full expanse of information that allowed them to then, and encouraged them to then reach their own conclusions and exercise critical thought in a way that was directly intended to nurture their leadership. I am fully aware that it is because of that approach that I stand before you as Vice President of the United States of America.
Boy, what a radical left nut job. What a Marxist communist psychopath. Doesn't she sound unhinged?
I know what you're thinking. We got to get Joe Biden out of the way so we can run up against Cammie. Oh my goodness, is she beatable? It's like Black Hillary on steroids. Is she black? I guess she says she's Caribbean or whatever. It doesn't matter. She gives these speeches and it just has this aura of totalitarianism. My team says she's Indian and Caribbean. I'll tell you what, she would be a lot easier to beat than Joe Biden. A lot. I mean, Joe Biden is a bumbling, dementia-filled Alzheimer's, corrupt tyrant who should honestly be put in prison and or given the death penalty for his crimes against America. But Kamala Harris, my goodness, there's something that just kind of is tribal where people are like, I don't know if I want this crazy person running the country.
So there you have it, a beautiful example of Charlie Kirk taking the high road and avoiding violent rhetoric, just calling for the president of the United States at the time to be executed for treason and high crimes. No evidence. We don't need evidence. This is the thing with the right, and Scott Jennings is among them at the bottom of the barrel. But the argument is always like, well, they come after us for the things we say. They politically persecuted Donald Trump. There's a little tiny thing that they constantly seem to emit from their brains, which is the mountain of evidence that rivals in size our beloved Bullshit Mountain. And yet the right continues without a shred of shame to paint themselves as the virtuous party, the sincere party, the long-suffering party. And Scott Jennings is right up there at the front of the vanguard doing this. And Charlie Kirk was too. The xenophobia, the racism, and it's right there in that clip. This is just one clip. So I beg you, please spare us, Scott Jennings. Here's a little clip of Brian Kilmeade on Fox and Friends saying some horrible shit.
We feel so compassionate because you see the mental health crisis happening.
Exactly.
But it's not our job. We shouldn't have to live in fear while they figure out what's going on right there.
Right.
Put them in a mental institution, put them in a jail, and you guys figure it out. But people having to duck and dive on the trains and the buses, walking through the street, this is one case, but this is happening all across the country, and it's not a money issue. They have given billions of dollars to mental health and the homeless population. A lot of them don't want to take the programs. A lot of them don't want to get the help that is necessary. You can't give them a choice. Either you take the resources that we're going to give you, or you decide that you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them.
Yeah, Brian, why did it have to get to this point?
Right. I would say this. We're not voting for the right people. In North Carolina, wake up. You can't keep putting these people in power.
Charming. So, Brian Kilmeade has apologized for this, but not very Christian. Sounds a little like violent rhetoric to me. Oh, but, he didn't mean it, maybe Scott Jennings would say. Or, oh, well, he's apologized for it, Scott Jennings might say. Or, he doesn't really care. He's fringe. He's not represented. It's Fox and Friends.
Not known. Colleges are not known as hotbeds of conservatism. He goes to a college to engage in civil discourse, and now he's dead because that's what he did. So I really don't have any time for both sidesing this today. It's our friend that's dead because he was doing what you're supposed to do as an American. Talk, use your voice, use your words, use your powers of reasoning, debate, speech. That's what we do as Americans. And now our friend's dead, and you want to lecture me about Donald Trump or
I'm not
conservatives
lecturing you.
or both
I guess
sides?
I'm just saying.
It tells me you don't really get what's happening, and
well,
so
no,
I'm happy to explain it to you, but you clearly don't get
I
it.
am, Scott, seeking to understand how, if this is not a time for rhetoric, if it is a time to remember your friend who he's been assassinated. There is no words to express how awful that act was and is. No words. And if this is a time for respectful discourse, why is a Fox News anchor saying this is war? Why is Steve Bannon saying Kirk is a casualty of war?
Because to a lot of conservatives right now, that's the way it feels. It feels like that on the left right now, there is increasing amount of violent rhetoric. There is an increasing amount of people who have decided that debate and politics are useless and that they need to take it to another level. That's the way it feels to conservatives. And do you know why it feels that way? Because our friend was shot in the throat and murdered in cold blood. That's why it feels that way. Because our president last summer was nearly assassinated. I mean, he was a millimeter from dying last summer. I mean, people have forgotten this. The president of the United States, running for office last summer, came within millimeters of what happened to Charlie yesterday. And so to conservatives, not only does it feel like our people are physically under attack, but it also feels like you're constantly rhetorically under attack for saying things that are not particularly controversial, that 80 or 90% of the American people believe. And then we have to get lectured about it,
I think Scott Jennings is the perfect encapsulation of the core of this movement, which is constant aggrievement. Our friend was hurt for no fault of his own. We have to sit here and listen to you lecture us when 90% of the American people agree with what... It's all horseshit, dude. You're living in a dream bubble. Look at a poll. Pick your poll. Look at a Fox News poll. The approval ratings are in the toilet and they continue to drop because Americans don't want this. Americans don't want this. There's a sector of white supremacists that want this. There's a sector of xenophobes that want this. There is a sector of Christian nationalists that want this. And there's a sector of neo-Nazis that want this. And then there is a sector of billionaires and tech bros and the oligarchs that want this because it's actually easier for them, because pay to play is easier for them than navigating a democratic system of checks and balances. That's not anywhere near 90% of America. Most people don't want the ICE raids. Most people don't want the strong arming or the crackdowns or the meme coins or the new gilded ballroom or any of it, or the constant fire hose of absolute horseshit coming down off a bullshit mountain. It's just flabbergasted. You can look at his face. He's convinced. He's high on smelling his own farts, and he's indicative of the entire movement. And I have intelligent friends or acquaintances. I don't really count them friends anymore because I just can't get my head around it. that voted for Trump both times, and they've fallen uncannily silent now, which I take as a good sign. They're hardly out in the streets protesting, but they've stopped proselytizing. And what you have left are the neo-Nazis like Stephen Miller and increasingly J.D. Vance and the Scott Jennings of the world here, who continue to spread this alternate version of reality that's just not grounded in anything. You know, what really infuriates is the grievance. The like, geez, can't a rich white man get a break anymore? It's like, what did you think was going to happen? They don't see it. They don't see it. I am not celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk. We cannot assassinate each other. It is violence only begets more violence, and this cannot tip over into violence like this, where we just get closer and closer to it. But as they spew this violent rhetoric, you know, and even as I say that, I hear myself falling into this us and them rhetoric. You know, Scott Jennings asserts that 90% of the American population agrees with him and MAGA. I don't think the polling supports that. That's certainly not what I feel. I would say that whether it's 90%, polling indicates that 70 to 80, a large majority of us broadly agree. It varies issue by issue, but, you know, most of us want some sort of common sense gun reform. Most of us want improved health care and lower health care costs and better coverage. Most of us want better education and support for pregnant mothers, and on and on and on. And I think we need to wake up and tune out these very prominent voices offering us easy answers and easy scapegoats, and elect officials who are going to illustrate integrity. And we need to institute some common sense reform, some term limits, and some other easy to achieve things that make the government work democratically, get money out of government. We need to repeal Citizens United. I think we need Supreme Court reform. This Supreme Court is illustrated. These are doable things, but we as the American people have to demand it. My hope is that BS artists like Scott Jennings, it's going to continue to wane in effectiveness as people see what this authoritarianism looks like on the ground, and that we can still pull this out of the fire before it burns down. It does feel to me like pundits like Scott Jennings, certainly our dear leader and his vice president and his cabinet like Stephen Miller and Steve Bannon, it feels like these people are trying to foment a civil war, blame the left, and we just can't let it happen. 90% of Americans don't want that. Do not want that. Let me know what you think in the comments.